Perfect. Yeah, I can jump in real quick. And we have one more, Larissa, who should be joining us here in a little bit, but she can intro when she gets here. Yeah, I'm Jay. I work on our replication team here at Community First Village. So get the joy of being the team that gets to interact with folks like Aaron and Mandy and folks around the country doing this work. So that's a little bit of what I do, and I'll pass it over to you, Jared.
Yeah. My name's Jared. I'm the property manager here at Community First Village. Been here for almost 3 years, and yeah, we do all the normal property management stuff, leasing, um, work orders, maintenance, all that.
And it looks like Larissa. Did she join us as well?
Yes. Hi. Sorry I was a little late, guys.
All right.
Are y'all doing intros?
Yeah.
Lovely. I'm Larissa. I'm our supportive services manager on the neighbor care team. So same department as Jared, just a different team. Get the privilege of working really closely with that team to support our neighbors. And yeah, supportive services does a lot. It's kind of hard to summarize, but we support our neighbors in a lot of different ways. We have a bunch of direct service staff on our team. But yeah, excited to chat with you guys about conflict.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yay.
So,
April, do you want to introduce yourself?
yeah, so I'm April Chatham Carpenter, and I live in Little Rock. I'm a faculty member at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, and I'm teaching a conflict management graduate level class, which is the reason why we're Mandy and Aaron called you guys together, because they're doing a project at the end of the semester that they could really benefit from knowing more about the kinds of conflicts that might potentially take place at Providence Park based on the experience of Community First Village. So that was, I really appreciated Mandy and Aaron getting you guys together. So
Yeah. So I'm Erin Stanger. It's nice to meet you, Jared and Larissa. I haven't met you yet, so I love meeting more members that make Community First function so well. So I've been through the replication program. I was just on site this past weekend, brought some friends with me to check out Community First. Jay did an awesome job getting all that planned. And of course, I'm the CEO of Providence Park, and so we're your replicator village located in Arkansas, in Little Rock.
Yeah.
So Mandy, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Mandy Davis. I'm the Director of Neighborhood Partnerships with Providence Park in Little Rock. And April and I have been working on conflict management partnership and her graduate class, and just looking for a partner to partner with us in this. And so I wanted to learn more from you all to make sure that we're on the right path.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good stuff. So
Yeah.
thanks everybody again for your time, just time of learning. So yeah, April, do you want to maybe kick off with some questions you
yeah,
have?
I mean, I've
Does that make
got a
sense?
list of questions, but I'm flexible. So if there's things, Aaron and Mandy, that you all want to make sure you ask, then feel free to just say, April, we're done with you, and we want to ask our own. So and I know that you all, based on your introductions, Jay and Jared and Larissa, work in different areas in terms of the Community First. So you might all answer this question differently, but I'm curious about the kinds of conflicts that arise most often that you are seeing at Community First.
I say Jared's probably got the best answer to this one, but I can start, and I bet you Jared will fill in the other half that he gets to see more often. So we do have a partner. Jay, did we talk at all about Life Anew and restorative justice and how they're our partner yet? Okay.
No, we haven't.
Okay, so we'll definitely talk about them today. They're a great resource, and honestly, I think could be a next step if they're interested in connecting with you guys and talking through how they operate at the village, because it's pretty unique. But a lot of the times we are using them for neighbor to neighbor conflict management and restorative justice and mending those relationships where maybe some harm was done. And some of those topics might include like financial issues, like people borrowing money from each other, It could include some things around substance use, some neighbors who are frustrated by that in their community, or I mean, anything under the sun when it comes to that category. But there is a lot of difficulty with their neighbors just being in close proximity to one another. Your neighbor is not far from your space. And so there can be, your dog is barking at night, or you have too many friends over, you play your music too loud. I mean, just the natural things that happen when you live very closely to your next door neighbor, and their lifestyles may not align with your lifestyles. And then there's, we have a conflict right now with one of our neighbors and our ride program. And he's really frustrated that we take neighbors to the methadone clinic. And we do that 3 times a week. And so we are unavailable to take anybody else to their doctor's appointments during those rides. And he's very frustrated by that. And he finds that as favoritism in some way. So, I mean, there are so many types of conflict, and it could be, you could put it into 5, 10 different buckets. But yeah, we have, I mean, it's a daily, if not 10 times a day, probably more often for Jared, is seeing the neighbor to neighbor conflict than I am. What other buckets did I miss, Jared? There's so many.
You did a pretty good job summarizing buckets. I was thinking while you're talking, I thought, okay, I can start with the conflicts that we've run across, today. Today we have one neighbor very frustrated with another neighbor for moving the picnic tables in front of the market. The neighbor who's moving the picnic tables in front of the market is moving them because he believes that people are selling drugs from them and they shouldn't be able to do that in front of the market. So there's a conflict going on with that right now. We had another neighbor refuse to get off of the bus, holding up the bus for the other neighbors who were getting on the bus and not allowing them to move on with their ride. We do, I would say a lot of the conflicts that we see and on a day-to-day basis have to do with feelings of injustice around services, whatever those services may be. We offer the Gus Bus program, which neighbors basically drive other neighbors around on a golf cart who struggle with mobility issues. And we get several conflicts a day about, they didn't stop at my stop long enough. There was another person on the bus playing music too loudly. I don't like it when they bring their dog on the bus. Lots of conflicts around that. When it comes to the service side of things, I deal with a lot of conflicts about cutting in line for meals. They always get to go in the front of the line. I'm always in the back of the line. And then there's kind of a life cycle of a lot of these conflicts where they'll begin small. There may be some kind of if not a physical altercation, a yelling match, and then the conflict goes on between those neighbors for a long time well, if I was asked not to come to the dinner anymore for causing a disruption, how come the person who caused me to cause the disruption isn't going? So a lot of it ends up circling back to those services and feelings of injustice about them. Two most common things we see in property management are loud music complaints and theft. Theft is a very, very common complaint that we deal with. This week, I've received incident reports for theft of a cane, theft of a bicycle, and I think theft of some groceries. That might have been last week, but those, like, we get those very, very regularly.
Yeah, I feel like the list is endless, but
yeah,
there's definitely, I feel like that's such a big category of, like, I like the way you said it, like feelings of injustice, either around like services, availability, concerns about favoritism, like those all fall into that same bucket of like fairness and treatment of one another. we have that neighbor who I was talking about who feels really unfairly about the rides. We're having him sign an agreement that says if you're going to continue to, you know, work in this program with us, you have some boundaries that you have to agree to. You have some behavioral things that are going on that can't continue if you want this service. And so I feel like PM and hopefully all of Neighbor Care does a good job of setting the stage for our neighbors to understand what's okay and not okay, to try and reduce some conflict so that they can see like, well, you know, I did agree to that. You're right. Like I said I would do that, and that's a part of this. And we can kind of show them that back just in case there is those examples of conflict or those instances of conflict. And our lease obviously has a lot of rules in it, but a lot of the programs that we run also have some pretty strict rules and guidelines for our neighbors to try to keep everything as neat as we can. But a lot of those things are happening outside of programs and services. A lot of those things are just happening naturally. And so we do have a lot of like structure around how to deal with some of the conflict depending on what it is. And there's definitely a large bubble that we just don't touch, and we let our neighbors self-resolve because we can't fix everything and be everything for them all of the time. But we have a pretty good list of like how do we approach this. But yeah, I feel like if we went down every incident report and every report form, it'd be like 10,000.
So how do you, it sounds like you have a structure for people to report conflicts. So is that typically how you find out that there's a conflict between people?
Yeah, we have a property management report and we have a supportive services report. So both of those teams have two separate reports. Property management is more for like somebody broke a rule in the lease, and I think property management needs to know about it. So and so got in a fight, so and so is selling drugs, so and so you know, you name it. Jared, I think, has like 3,000 incident reports a year or something really wild. But so that's kind of like somebody broke a rule, I want to report. And then the neighbor support forum side is for my team, and that is really like, I'm concerned about this person, they're not well. But that could also be something that came from a conflict instance. So we have reporting opportunities for our neighbors in the property management side. But for my team, the neighbor support forum is just for our staff and our missionals and our partners. So neighbors are not like, I think so-and-so's off his meds. Like we don't open that up to neighbors just because they already have an avenue to report if things are going wrong. And we really want to hear from them about like rules that are being broken versus we really want our staff to be keeping an eye out for neighbors who may not be doing well mentally, who may not be doing well medically, socially. I mean, I get neighbor support forums that say like, I think Mr. Jones is lonely. Like, can someone go check on him? And so that's the kind of thing that our team is getting. And so it's really nice to be able to have that, those two reporting systems. And then we do very different things with those reports. But there's also a lot of other avenues in which neighbors will bring these things to our attention. We have town halls. We have, you know, is it monthly or quarterly, Jared? What is it called? The neighborhood council?
I think it's quarterly.
So every quarter neighbors can bring concerns to the neighborhood council, which is like your elected representatives for your neighborhood, which is really cool. So a lot of times that will be examples of things that they are dealing with that maybe we don't see or hear about, but they can bring to each other and try to self-resolve together. But yeah, I'm like, I wrote a really long list and I'm like, I really want to go through this, but I don't know which one to start with. We have so much else that we do outside of like reporting and hearing about it, but I'll let y'all lead the way for like what would be helpful.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things I would like to know is kind of, you sound like that there's different structures depending on if it's on the property management side and the supportive neighbor support side that you go through. So you get the complaint comes in or the concern comes in, what do you do with it next?
Yeah, Jared, do you want to talk about like Sativa's side of things?
So we have an instant reporting system. If a neighbor has a complaint about something or wants to inform us about something, they can enter it one of two ways. They can either do it through an online Microsoft form, which is used very rarely, or they can come in and put it down on paper. And I just want to say, just for the record, that having something in paper is like very, very helpful to allow people to write out their frustrations.
Yeah.
And there's many times where that's all that's needed is they needed to write out their frustrations and put it in that box. A lot of times that can resolve an issue. And by the time they've written it out, they feel better and they don't really care about what happens to it next. But once we receive the incident report, it gets reviewed by our technical administrator, Sativa. And it depends on what it is, but there's a lot of outcomes. So like, let's say there's a theft involved. If there's a theft reported, Sativa will take a look at our security cameras, see if there's any evidence of the theft taking place. And if one neighbor did steal from another neighbor, we would go back to the neighbor who made the complaint. We would say, hey, just so you know, we've identified that someone did take your belongings. Unfortunately, we can't share with you who that person is, but you can call and make a police report about the theft, and we'd be happy to share that evidence with the sheriff's department when they come out to take the report. At that point, we typically also go to that other neighbor and go, hey, we saw you on camera steal this thing. Could you please return it to me right now and we can resolve this? But the important part for us is that a lot of our neighbors are very uncomfortable dealing with the sheriff's department. So we really act as the conduit for communication with them. We deal with the report. We talk to the deputies when they come out and we let them know what's going on. If it's not a criminal offense, let's say it's an unreported dog that is being disruptive, then we would issue a lease violation on their door. On the lease violation, there are office hours. Jerry, who's our project coordinator, he's kind of we need to give him a new title because it doesn't suit what he does, but he handles all the lease violations, and he has office hours every week where if you receive a lease violation and if you would like to dispute it or you just want more information about it, you can come in and talk to Jerry about it during those hours. But those lease violations are reflected on their record. The other outcome that can happen is a referral for services. There's a lot of times where an incident report will indicate something that is a mental health concern. My favorite example that I use to death is I got one once that said, someone is breaking into my house and poking holes in all of my fruit. Like, I know no one's breaking into that person's house and like there's the camera was reviewed. That's not happening. But then I would put in a neighbor support form with Larissa so that her team can go and check in with that person and see how they're doing with their mental health based on that report. Very often, the incident reports are just about conflicts themselves. Somebody called me a name. Somebody is being mean to me. I'm not getting along with this person. Those types of incidents are referred to Life Anew. So hopefully some kind of restorative justice can be done there on the back end. In the property management side, I'd say probably the main difference is we're far more observe and report, whereas Larissa's team is really going out to the community and getting in touch with people and talking to them about what's going on. We're really trying to figure out what's going on and make the appropriate referral so that the person can get the help or the services they need.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then for the supportive services side, when we get a neighbor support form, a lot of them do come from property management. So, we'll really do like an assessment of the situation. We have a really large team of social work interns. And so they all just finished their training. I'm very proud of them. They're pretty great at assessing. And so they will take into context, like, what is this person's support system? What skills do they have? What resources do they have? What do they not have available to them? And see if we can fill the gaps of like, okay, where is this conflict coming from? Are you actually upset about this thing? Or is it because you ran out of your SNAP and you've been super hungry because the food bank is cutting back on funding and you don't have as much support as you used to have? And so they're really assessing the neighbor as a whole person and seeing if the conflict is coming from somewhere that we can resolve in a way. And if not, we do our best to bridge our neighbors to things that will be longer term. So if this is like a recurring issue, like you keep having shouting matches in the living room, it might be time for an anger management class. I don't know. But we'll work really closely with our neighbors and support systems. So whether that's, we have a mental health provider out here called Integral Care, and they have psychiatrists and counselors and therapists and case managers. And so we work really closely with them, and we'll report some of these things to them as an entity and say, hey, your client has been struggling with this. I just want you to know, because PM sees all. We see the things that need to be supported. And then when we hand that off to like a partner like Integral Care or Life Anew, we try to give them as much context as we can so that they're able to resolve like holistically, instead of just saying like, okay, well, you're mad that Tony took $20. Here's $20. Like, that's not going to solve the core of the issue. So we try to get at like, where is this coming from? And are there things that we can support you in so that we can prevent it from happening again? But yeah, Life Anew as our partner for restorative justice is incredible. They do 6 weeks of sessions with neighbors, weekly visits. They're usually about an hour and a half. And then when the neighbor's done with the 6 weeks, they get a certificate that says, I completed my restorative justice sessions with Life Anew. And I mean, they will do anything from like a neighbor who's struggling to set boundaries, to a neighbor who got into an altercation with another neighbor, to, I'm just struggling communicating what I need. And so we end up in conflict because my communication skills aren't great. So the RJ program is beautiful. If in another life I would be doing that full time. I love it so much. But they are in the same building as me, like right now, like 4 offices down, that's where they are. And so my team has really close access to them, and they are also deep in the community as well. So Life Anew isn't just one-on-one with neighbors who are in conflict and need to restore that relationship. They are also doing community circles every week, inviting people in. I think last week's session topic was like coping skills. Like, what are your coping skills? How do we grow your coping skills as a set? So they're a great partner, and they are really well trained, and they've been doing this in the community for a long time. So we're pretty high utilizers of restorative justice. Probably do at least a referral every week.
Are they counselors, social work trained? How are they?
No,
Okay.
they are community. Their model is more about a community level, like the meso level of social work, I would say, but none of them are therapists or counselors or social workers, which is really interesting. But they have a lot of the same skills, I've noticed. Like, they run groups in the way that like I would train one of my social work interns to run a group. So a lot of the same like values, but yeah, that's a good question.
So before I go into additional questions, Aaron and Mandy, do you guys have questions so far about anything that they've said?
Mandy, do you have any questions?
I just want to make sure I understand the streams of referrals. So, because there's a few that have been mentioned, and so do you all have any type of conflict flow chart here? Like, how do you know what goes to Jared, what goes to Larissa, what goes to restorative justice, what goes to Life Anew or Life Integral? There were several mentioned, and like, are there parameters for each referral? Because it sounds like they all go to property management, and then Sativa decides what to do with them. Is that
So
right?
there's two original points of referrals. So there's the incident report form and there's the neighbor support form. Now, the incident report form is open to all staff and all neighbors, and that is mostly used to do with things regarding lease violations. All of those go to property management. The neighbor support form is, I don't want to speak for your form, but it's more in line with somebody who needs support on either a mental health or services level, getting connected with some kind of supportive service in that way. So they could come into either one of those buckets.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the ones that come in as a complaint about a lease violation, especially the ones that are one neighbor writing a complaint about another neighbor, tend to also meet the criteria where we then copy and paste it into a neighbor support form because we feel like behind this grievance, there is a need for service. So we do have a standard operating procedure, like any neighbor on neighbor harassment complaint is automatically sent to Larissa's team because there's an opportunity for restorative justice there. Anything that raises a mental health red flag is automatically sent to Larissa's team for them to look at. And it's not, I know I said it, it's not only Sativa reviewing these. We have a weekly meeting where we review the ones that are not that don't easily fit into buckets as a team to decide where they go.
Yeah, and we do the same thing too. So the number of forms that Jared's team is getting is much higher than mine, which makes sense. But yeah, kind of like he said, incident report form is available to all staff, neighbors, missionals, partners, I'm sure have filled them out before, but the neighbor support form is just for staff. We include missionals in that because, you know, they are in the same vein as far as what the neighbor support form is helpful for. So anything that comes from property management, anything that we get in the neighbor support form, I mean, for example, like the Integral Care referral or mental health agency, we are not referring neighbors there for like simple case management tasks. They have to be willing to do a 2-hour intake with Integral Care and be diagnosed at the end of that intake and be referred to case management or counseling or psychiatry. So that is a much more intense answer. But to be honest, often like 75% of the time that I get a neighbor support form that would warrant mental health support, that person's already engaged with Integral Care and I'm just forwarding the message along. But about 25% of the time, we are discovering that somebody has mental health needs through the PM form to me or just straight to me. And our neighbor care navigator named Maya is in charge of that form. And so she reads it every day. And, you know, she is the navigator. She gets this nugget and she sends it over there. She gets this one and she sends it over there. So she has her own, but to be honest, that's a brand new rule from about 2 years ago. And so we're just now figuring out what does neighbor care navigation really look like. And so there's not a work flow chart that we've built yet. It's just her and I training together on like, okay, what does mental health really look like? Just because somebody is in financial distress doesn't mean that they need Integral Care.
Yeah.
And they have to agree to these services. So we're never referring a neighbor to a partner like Integral Care or Life Anew, or Communities for Recovery if they're wanting to work on their substance use or recovery issues. Like we're not doing that without their consent. So we're having conversations with them about it first and making sure it's the appropriate thing that they actually need for support. But yeah, Jared, we should make a workflow like.
So I just want to make sure I understand. So there's Integral Care, which is your mental health partner. There's Restorative Justice, which is your conflict management. Is that right? Okay. I'm just making sure. And what is Life Anew? What would you?
Life Anew is the company that runs Restorative Justice at the Village. So Life Anew Restorative Justice is a very long name. So
same thing. Okay, cool. And then Communities for Recovery, that is your substance abuse partner.
Yes.
Is there any others?
Yeah, we used to have Family Elder Care, so we're going to try to replace them.
What is it? I'm sorry.
Family Elder Care was like a general case management. So they have payee services at the Village, which is nice. But they used to also have case management and what they called service coordination, which essentially is just walk up case management, like one-time need. I need to replace my debit card. I need to call Social Security and get something sent to me in the mail, little things that don't require recurring case management. So that partner has left and we're trying to replace them as a resource for our neighbors currently. But yeah, Community Care does not take referrals, but they're our medical partner on site. So a PCP doctor's office. And they just are walk in or call. So we don't have to do a referral to them. We'll just tell the neighbor, go down to the clinic and walk in and tell them what you need. But for all the other partners, we have actual referral forms that dump into their data. And so we have shared data together so we can track who did we refer, why, when, how long is it taking to get them connected to services and all that jazz.
Okay. So subsections of neighbor support would be Integral Care, which is mental health, Life Anew or Restorative Justice conflict management, Communities for Recovery, which is substance abuse partner, Family Elder Care, which is like general case management services, one time, not recurring, and then Community Care, which is your just your health clinic. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
those are our 5 partners. And we have smaller other partners, but they don't really connect to this conflict conversation. We have like a veterinarian that comes on site. We've got pet food programs.
But those are your partner tools to solve the quote conflict or support,
Yeah.
that you get that might arise from conflict, but not always. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And then,
so it's more likely that we would refer to restorative justice for pure conflict resolution between 2 people who are actively having a disagreement
Okay.
or conflict. But if your conflict is with your neighbor because of a mental health concern, then it kind of just depends on what the conflict is about. But I would say community care, as far as like medical and like healthcare referrals go, don't always come from a place of conflict. That would be
Mhm.
interesting to think about.
I had a
but it's a
question.
tool. Okay. So those are your 4, your 5, 1, 2, 3, your 5 partners that you're using. And then, the incident reports, Jared, do you have the same sort of partnership tools, or you don't because you're property management?
So the outcomes from an incident report form are it could result in one or all of these things. Like every incident report, the way it works is we track it in a spreadsheet. It comes in one cell, and then we have a list of all the different referral options, and it's a drop down box, and you can select from them, and we track what referrals we make for each input. But it could result in a lease violation. It could result in a report being made with the Travis County Sheriff's Department. It could result in nothing. One of the options is just informational. And the final one is a neighbor support form, which would then send it to Larissa, who can decide which partner it fits best with.
Or it may result in like a ban from a building. Like maybe this conflict was against our community rules and you cannot threaten someone in the living room, or you're not going to get to come to the living room for 90 days. So there could be another consequence that's like MLF inflicted. Outside of a lease violation, we have what are called stay away agreements, which is essentially a ban on whatever space you caused too much of a conflict in. And we can't, it's not safe for other neighbors to have you in that space while you're choosing that path. But yeah, I just signed a stay away agreement today, which is not fun, but it is one of the answers.
Yeah.
Got it.
And just to give like a quick answer to that is any referral that needs to go to supportive services goes through Larissa, just because it's much easier to have one point of contact for all those supportive services. It used to be that we would directly refer from property management to those partners, but we found that between the 2 teams doing that simultaneously, it became really hard to track what the outcomes were of those referrals. So Larissa is the czar of communicating with our partners.
Got it. Larissa, in that vein, could you make a note to send us the contact information for Life Anew Restorative Justice?
Yeah, for sure. I'll
think that
see
would
if Tanya's
be-
still here when I leave, and I imagine they'll say yes. Yeah, I'd be happy.
Yeah, and I would also like the contact information for your Communities for Recovery, that substance abuse partner, if you don't mind. That'd be great.
Totally. Let me reach out to them and make sure. I imagine they'll say yes. But I'll ask them and see.
And then, Jared, are you able to share your incident report? And same with you, Larissa. Are you able to share the neighbor support form with us?
I could share with you like
The
the front
template?
end, not the back end, but
Yeah, the template.
like what it looks like.
Great.
Yeah,
And Jared, are
As
you
long
able
as
to
y'all don't
share?
fill one out. I'm just kidding. Unless you have a paper that you need to fill
I might
out.
need some support. Jared, are you able to share your incident report?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I'd also be happy to share the standard operating procedure of like what falls into what bucket, if that's helpful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jared is fancy and he has that. We have not made that for supportive services yet. Do you want to make one for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
What role do the
Not chat. I
missionals,
should probably put it in an email.
what role do the missionals play in all of these things?
Yeah. Good question.
Yeah. What do you think, Jared?
That's
It's a good David question.
it is a good David question. The missionals don't have a lot of crossover with our two teams, I would say. They're more in the, correct me if I'm wrong, Lori, so they probably have more crossover with the neighbor engagement team and doing events and stuff like that. But their role as far as where they fit into these kind of processes is not very defined. They're implanted in the community. There are lots of missionals that have very close relationships with the neighbors. It is not uncommon that I will have a missional walk into my office with two neighbors who are in conflict and go, we'd all like to sit down and talk about this. That happens all the time, but their role is not, they don't have a defined place in this process.
Since they're not staff, like they're not hourly, they don't clock in and out, and they're just here to live in community with our neighbors, and so we don't task them with like the responsibility of any of this. I will say our team has a little bit of overlap, and it's a really good practice when we come to like our neighbor privacy and confidentiality rules of like what we can and can't share about our work with neighbors, because if we don't have that neighbor's explicit permission to talk about their case, if that's what we want to call it, with a missional, then we don't. And we say a really generic sentence that says, I appreciate you so much for caring for this neighbor. I can pass this information along and keep doing what you're doing. We're really grateful for you. But no, I can't tell you if that person made it to their psychiatry appointment yet, because I don't have the neighbor's permission to share that that's a thing that's happening at all. So that's something that we work with, but we do have a lot of missionals who deeply love and care for our neighbors, and they learn way more about our neighbors than we will ever learn because they are their next door neighbor or they're one of their best friends. And so we get a lot of neighbor support forms from missionals letting us know how neighbors are doing, and they are fierce advocates for our neighbors, and we love it. Like they're the secret sauce, the magic touch of the village. Like we couldn't do what we're doing without them. So really grateful for them. They just don't have a responsibility as far as like kind of the things we're talking about today, which is good because they shouldn't.
One of the things I wonder about, I mean, you guys have been in existence how long? Community First?
Your birthday is sometime soon. Jay should know that, huh?
10 years. Yeah.
Yes,
10
10 years of the village, 27 as an organization.
Okay. So I can imagine that this structure that you have currently is not at all what you had at the very beginning.
It's not
so-
what we had 2 years ago.
Can you walk us? I mean, I would love, maybe this is more of an Aaron and Mandy question, but I would love to kind of know what should you put in place first,
Yeah.
in
That
terms
was-
of,
That was my question, April. Like, if you had to choose what, as you're starting an organization, what are the key components as we kick off for neighbors 1 and 2?
What do you think, Jared? I like that I'm just forwarding all these to Jared. I'm like, I want to know what he says.
I think, well, I think as far as with what we've talked about so far, I don't think at the beginning it would have been helpful for us to distinguish between like a neighbor support form and an incident report form at a small level. But I will say that I think having an outlet for the neighbors and giving them a voice to voice their concerns in a structured way is a really good habit to build early on, because as we continue to grow and as we grew, kind of making that cultural shift to, in order to now respond to everyone's needs, we need you to help us document them and follow a process is a hard cultural transition for our neighbors who've been here 8 years to make, who are used to just coming in and talking to their buddy Matt, who used to sit at my desk, because when there's 10 people, it's very easy to come sit and talk to somebody at their desk. However, by the time Larissa and I started working here, we were at a point where we were just getting too big to have to be able to respond effectively to all of the things that were coming in. So I would say it's not necessarily about what you start with, but just looking in advance and trying to build the habits early on that I'm willing to sit here and talk to you about it. I want to sit here and talk to you about it, but also let's get this on paper and let's follow a process, so that's kind of built into the DNA early on.
Yeah. And even if you had, I mean, I don't know how big we're talking about neighbors 1 and 2, but what is the like end goal of?
It's 400. So our phase one is up to 100 homes, phase two, 200, phase three, 300, phase four, 400. But we're going to move in, we're starting to kind of move in two neighbors at a time in just a few months from now. And so we are doing our best to think ahead and learn from y'all, and then just having April and her class, really interested in this is just a huge bonus for us, because we sit and think about these things all the time. But there's some nuances I've heard today. I think that'll be really helpful for us to think about as we frame out the
Yeah.
best way to handle it.
I mean, like Jared said, we are really like niche in our sub teams of neighbor care because the village has gotten so big and we've just been able to build out the way that we have done with neighbor
Yeah.
care. But I think having in the beginning a place for things to live and learning how you
Yeah.
want to organize it, even if you get one report a month right now, but having a place for things to live and dream what you want it to look like and how you're going to organize it and who's going to be
Mhm.
responsible for it and who's the
Yeah.
communicator and how do you follow up on what you said you were going to do and where all that lives. I would have loved to be, I would have loved, I don't know how this sentence is going to grammatically play out. It would have been super cool if when I started, there was any structure to the neighbor support form at all. It was just like, I don't know, people send things here and that was it. There was nothing. So we're making it up as we go, to be honest. Like we're just testing out what works and what doesn't. But having a place for stuff to live is
Yeah, a place for stuff to live. Do you have a software management tool that
yeah.
you love and that you would mind recommending?
We just use Microsoft Forms. It's
Okay.
not very fancy, but
Yeah, but that works for you at your level.
yeah.
I mean, I'm super comfortable. We use forms already we have missional forms set up, so that's fine. I was just curious if there's anything other. Yeah.
No, we have Asana, which is good for like task tracking, like
Mm.
who's responsible for what, but
Mhm.
it's mostly just Microsoft Forms. Well, we
Yeah,
have Power BI. Is that part of Microsoft, Jared? I don't
It's
remember.
it
it's
is.
like a Microsoft
It's
add-on.
it's an app. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really nice too for reporting, which is really helpful. But
I
Okay.
I would say paying attention to how your property management software is going to be built out and having really good designations between what goes in those sheets and what goes in your property management software is really important. Like making a decision on, are you tracking lease violations in the property management software and supportive issues in a spreadsheet? Do you want that all in one place?
Yeah,
And
going to mesh.
making sure
Yeah.
that they're going into those different places right away, because untangling that is very, very difficult
Yeah.
if it's all been dumped into one for a long time.
I was
For that.
looking on the list. I realized when Jay and I were like, what all do we want to make sure we include the other day? I put a couple of things on here. So these are things I could just send y'all, but some other stuff that we have like
I'm in a meeting, hold on.
structure-wise set up is like we do a lot of, do you know who Ryan Dowd is?
Yeah.
So we
He's
have all of
great.
the Ryan Dowd trainings like mandatory for all of our staff. It's like at the
Okay.
core 4-hour training. And then we have a backup line for like intense conflict de-escalation opportunities. So our backup line is where you can call one number and it'll ring 6 people within neighbor care who are pretty skilled in de-escalation can come help you in a moment of conflict or crisis.
Okay.
During all of our new employee orientations, we do like a boundaries and a de-escalation training, which I got to do this morning, which is always fun. So like right off the bat, people are learning like what is okay and not okay. What conflict can you leave be and what conflict should you engage in? Because it's a part of our community rules. And then yeah, like our weekly supervision hours that we have with our direct service staff are practicing like how are they going to address these things when they're out there independently and done with
Oh,
their
wow.
training and how can they feel like
Mm.
confident and equipped to handle it if they're the only person around. So just like a lot of training and a lot of like on-call resources for our staff here when they're actively
Mm.
dealing with this out in the community.
Yeah, if you could send us that information,
Yeah.
that would be great.
That'd be
For
great.
sure.
Yeah.
Let me add it to the list.
Because I
Um,
was going to ask about training. So yeah, Jay, you haven't said hardly anything. I
oh
think
well,
you just, what do you
these
do?
are the experts. These are the experts in the room. So that's what I did. I got the right people in the room. I was gonna say, Larissa and Jared, in terms of like Providence Park starting from the beginning, is there anything y'all would say regarding like best practices with partners on site that you wish would have been in place from the beginning, or expectations or anything in that vein?
Yeah, I would say if you're gonna, depending on how many partners you're gonna have, you should be having weekly meetings with them in the beginning and then move yourself to every other week and then move yourself to once a month. But you should be constantly checking in with your partners. You shouldn't be 6 months later like, oh, that funding got cut 6 months ago. Wish I would have known. Like just constant communication with your partners. And then having a shared data. I don't know, ours is just called our referral sheets, but it's where we are giving them information and they are also putting their notes in so that we can see a live update of how each neighbor is engaging with them. Um, Figuring out your structures for referrals. Because in the beginning, I'm sure Matt just walked over to Communities for Recovery and was like, Joe wants to work with you. Here you go. Good luck, guys. And that was it. But now we are tracking like who of our neighbors is engaging with our partners, how long are our partners taking to get to them? Like what is our turnaround time? So we track all of that pretty diligently. But I would say like in the beginning, just really good communication with them and setting up expectations for each other. Like, hey, if I send a neighbor your way and they don't want to work with you, are you going to tell me? Do you think that that's too private to tell me as their landlord? What can we talk about and not talk about during these staffing meetings? What's important to them for support? And I think just even if it's not a whole lot of referrals, like making sure it lives in a place that you can both access easily so that you don't waste a lot of time, like having 87 phone calls about 87 referrals. You could just open it up and have a live view of what's going on with each person that y'all are sharing in your work together. Um, and then, yeah, Jared, what would you say is like one of our reasons that we like work really well with our partners? I feel like I'm missing something there for like partner relationships.
Um, you know, I just think we do a good job of building a supportive culture with our partners. I think pro the partners I work the closest with are Integral Care, and I would consider Travis County Sheriff's Department one of our partners. And I can tell you that really spending time building a relationship with the local law enforcement is pays off major dividends. All of the local sheriffs have my cell phone number, and if they text me, I respond immediately, because the easier I can make their job, the more helpful they're going to be on the day that I really, really need them to be helpful on. And if our we went through a difficult period of time in our relationship with them, and I think um, their tolerance for responding to our neighbors' calls is way higher when they know that if there's a clear mental health problem, they can send me a text and I can say, no problem, already sent it to Integral Care, and they're going to have a case manager go over and talk with that person. You don't need to respond to that 911 call about, I don't know, a dragon on somebody's roof or something. Like they can do their job and don't have to come out here to deal with things that aren't in their job description. It makes it very helpful, and it really improves our neighbors' interactions with them. They're much more positive, and that's very helpful. But I just say a supportive relationship in general. We're very open with our partners, and we spend relational time with them. Integral Care comes over to my office on Friday afternoons a lot, and I'll have the therapist and a couple of the case managers just hanging out in the office for an hour talking about stuff, and we really just pay attention to the relational side of those relationships.
Larissa, do you guys provide training also for the missionals that are similar to the staff?
A little bit different, but we do invite them to Integral Care. Our mental health agency provides quarterly trainings. So I think the last few were on like boundaries and learning a lot about like substance use disorders. We're having an IDD training with Integral Care next month or this month, sometime soon. And our missionals are invited to those, but we don't require them to do like Ryan Dowd trainings and all of the really specific things for that we expect our staff to be able to do, like de-escalation. Like I don't think Jared or Jay, do you guys think missionals have access to the backup line even?
No.
I don't think we've even given that. Yeah, so it's a lot less, but we do invite them to some of our trainings but we also invite all of our partners to those trainings. So anybody who wanted to go could go. So yeah, a little bit less, but there's some in there. It's a good question. Y'all have such great questions. Can I just say, all these questions have been really thought. Like y'all have clearly been thinking about this. Like great, fantastic questions.
What is something that you don't have right now that you wish you had that would make your life easier?
What do you think? I feel like, all the managers need assistance.
Okay.
Just joking. That's not a good answer.
Um,
Oh, a centralized place for partners to see what each other is doing. That's something we're building right now. Like a shared space where everything is
Perfect.
live and
Yeah.
we can all see what each other are like, contact information, who to call for what. This person is like last day is on the 10th. Like that doesn't live anywhere centralized. And so we're
Oh,
trying
so
like
that's not neighbor focus. You're saying like literally just partners,
yeah.
partner information, not
Partners being able to
neigh-
see what other partners are doing. But for conflict, I would say it would be really nice to have more what we call befriender volunteers. So people who are not counselors, not staff members, they are just volunteering out here to build relationships with our neighbors. It's kind of like we had a life coach befriending partner at one point, but I think we just need more befrienders. Like our neighbors are experiencing a lot of loneliness, and when they don't have anybody to turn to when life gets hard, conflict goes up. So I
is
think
it like
people
a
Call them
befrienders.
befrienders.
Mhm.
befrienders?
Befrienders. They're really like, have you guys ever heard of like some programs where people will go out to nursing homes and just spend time? Like they're not there to do a task, they're just there to be relational.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are befrienders, and I would love more befrienders. I think that it reduces conflict in the end of like people have more support to lean on that's not their case manager or their therapist or their property manager or the
That
guy that gives
sounds-
them rides to the doctor's office. Like it's just an extra.
Yeah. It sounds like a missional, but it's not someone that lives there.
Yeah, like and even missionals too have their own limit, right? They may the service they may be providing to the village could be like a meal or a sewing
Yeah.
class, or it may be whatever they want. They may only have 2 neighbors that they're close with, and so there's 500 neighbors. I would love them all to be able to have more like positive social interactions with others. Yeah.
How do you feel about this ratio? We decided on it. I'd just love to hear your reaction for missionals to neighbors. So we're going to have a 5-to-1 ratio. So for
5
every 5
missionals to 1
neighbors,
neighbor.
for every 5 neighbors, 1
I was
missional.
like, woo!
It's a whole village of missionals.
The whole village of
Um,
missionals.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah,
What's our ratio?
I think not
Not
that
bad.
high.
It's like 7. Gosh,
No,
Because
it's
there's
about
40
20.
missionals and
it's
there's
like 7 or 8%. Yeah,
for every
Um,
10.
yeah.
10 to
Well,
15 per missional.
yeah, 10
right?
to 15. But I mean, yeah, the more folks who are called to it and who are missionals, I think that just leads to more support, like Larissa was saying, and not having missionals get burned out or at their capacity. So yeah,
I love
I
that.
love it. Yeah,
Do it.
Okay,
definitely.
do
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Do it. Do it.
Great.
Curious on your reaction. Okay.
The 2 things I wish we had that we don't, one, I'm not sure exists. And if I find it, I'll let you know. But
Okay.
a case management software that also does property management, something that combines those 2 fields. I've worked in homeless services and used really great case management softwares. I've used really good property management softwares. I've yet to find something where they talk to each other cohesively, because we have too many spreadsheets. I'll just be honest with you. There's too many. I'd like to have less, and I'd like to have one place where we keep information on neighbors. And the second thing is some sort of a financial case management partner that would be willing to put one person in charge of every block of houses here at the village to be able to talk to people when they fall behind on rent. The getting people services and help with financial issues is the most challenging thing my team deals with probably out here right now. So that's I think something that's always underestimated in homeless services is how difficult it is for people who've experienced homelessness to interact with Social Security, to get a new ID, to get a passport, to do the things they need to do in order to receive the funding that they need to live. And Larissa and I are always working together to try to figure out how we can do a better job providing that. But if we had, I've always wished we had like one financial case manager per block of houses that could come in and just check in with people about where is their funding still on? Have their benefits been cut? Have they lost their job this week? Who do they talk to about that? And who guides them through getting back on track before it's too late?
Yeah, because all of those things, when they don't, if there's a blip in that in some way, that would lead to conflict.
Oh,
Most likely, right? That's probably the root of your, yeah.
it
That's
definitely
really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, it definitely is helpful.
Yeah.
Does your case management team currently address financial issues at all? Or are you saying you need more of those people that are purely addressing financial issues?
We need more people for that. It would be nice to have a designated partner for that.
Yeah.
Our
We-
team Larissa's team does a good job of getting out and reaching out to people, but our neighbors, they're not great at identifying problems. Is really difficult at scale because our neighbors aren't real great at doing things on time. So for instance, I ran the report yesterday to see how many people were behind. We have a certain category that we have a rent success person who goes out and tries to reach out to them if they've just fallen behind on rent. That means they're between 1 and 2 months behind on rent on the 6th of the month. And she's got a couple weeks now to try to get in touch with 81 people who are in that category. And that's a lot of people with a lot of, there's a lot of intricate details with each one of those people on why.
Yeah,
And-
it's a lot of case management right there.
And half of those
But
people
even
will,
like Sarah Ciotti's not a case manager. Like
Yeah.
she's just there to be like, can we make a payment plan? I've got 7 social work interns right now, and they can only have a caseload of 8. And then integral care, you have to have mental health concerns to work with them. So I think Jared's making a good point about like, if we had a specialized case management just for that, like just for financial stability, that would be
Yeah.
just kiss.
yeah.
But we do
And-
have case management. It's just not just for that. They're focusing on like, are you taking your meds?
Yeah.
Are you going to the
Andy,
doctor?
you know who I'm thinking of? We got a few financial partners. I'm like, oh yeah. So
That would be huge because half of those people on those lists are going to self-resolve, but we have no idea of knowing which half of those people are.
yeah.
So we have to try to get in contact with them and try to
Yeah.
figure out which ones
Yeah.
are going to and which ones aren't.
Well, and I recognize it's almost 4:30, so I just want to say I know probably everybody has somewhere to be. I feel like I could
I had one more
talk for
question I
another
wanted to
hour.
ask.
Mhm.
Related to, you mentioned town halls and neighborhood council. We haven't really gone down that road at all. What are the town halls for?
Yeah, we have quarterly town halls. They are for any really important updates that we hope all neighbors can come to and attend. What maybe like 120 people go to town hall,
Oh,
Jared?
yeah. About that.
So like maybe 25+% of the village, 30% of the village would go to a town hall. Any updates about the village that are really important, like when we had a new lease, or when the new phases are going to open up, or when we start to have the food bank come on site. We told everybody about new resources that are available to them. Any big changes in the village that we want neighbors to know about, and it gives them an opportunity to speak up. And half the time they are speaking up about a conflict that they are dealing with. And so it's a chance for them to feel heard. Our doors are open Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. But if they wanted a chance to do it with a microphone in front of the group of people, they can do it at the town hall. And then neighborhood council is a quarterly meeting between like leaders of the neighborhood that are neighbor selected and neighbor run. It is a fully neighbor run entity. And it's kind of like I don't really know what to compare neighborhood council to. Is it kind of like your city council, I guess?
It
Like
is, yeah.
elected representatives for your area, and then you bring your issues to them and they all come together and try to resolve.
Any training done for those neighbors on that council?
It's all their choice. So I actually have never been to a council meeting. I know a lot about it, but I should go to one. And there could be. I mean, I imagine they have like decorum rules and stuff for those meetings.
And just to add something to the town halls, I mean, it's one of those things just starting out. Something we found is really helpful is giving on a property management side, giving like seasonal updates. So this next one coming up, I'm going to do a presentation on how to drip your faucet when it's below freezing, and how to when springtime rolls around, I always do what to do when your AC goes out, how to let property management know about that. But seasonal issues, weather issues that could be coming up, we have a lot of new neighbors coming to those, and we always give a presentation. And last year we had our best freezes ever, because I think we did a really good job on the presentation with the least amount of burst pipes ever. It's a big problem when you have 15 to 20 burst pipes on a frozen day.
Was there anything else that you haven't shared that you wanted to make sure we knew?
I feel like if I think of it, I'm going to include it on this email that I'm writing to y'all with like the neighbor support forum, the backup line. I'll try to see if there's anything else that is related to what we talked about today and can kind of throw it in there together. But
Larissa,
yeah,
do you
I
mind
think-
explaining what the backup line is in the email?
Totally.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
you.
it's like a de-escalation. You're having trouble with this neighbor that's in front of you.
Okay. I'm going to make sure I fully understand that in my notes.
Yeah, we have a whole presentation for it when we introduce it to our staff, so I put that in there.
Thanks.
Hey, thank y'all so much.
Yeah,
This
no
is
problem.
Yes.
awesome. I'm also
And then-
terrified. I'm just kidding.
Oh, you guys are gonna do
Nice.
great. You guys are clearly asking the right questions, so
Right.
y'all are gonna
You're
do great.
trying.
April, if there's anything else that your students need,
Yeah.
Yeah,
know.
so why don't you, well, we'll have your email address when you put that, you send us that stuff.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I may be reaching out to you.
sounds
Yeah.
good.
Thank
you.
y'all so much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks
Of
for
course,
all
have a
that
good rest of your
everybody's doing.
evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
y'all. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah,
Take
of course.
Bye,
We'll see y'all.
Jay.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.